Microorganisms thrive in a vast array of environments, and that is why they show a great diversification. This diversification of the microbial world is of great importance to the scientist, and this is a source of unending wonders. The diversity of the microbial world is very critical and important because microbes hold a very prominent place in the living world. They are the one who are responsible for the degradation of the waste material. They are responsible to maintain the climatic conditions of an ecosystem. They are responsible for many biogeochemical cycles. And therefore, study of this diversification in the microbes becomes essential. The diversification of the life form was known from the early time, and Charles Darwin in his book The Origin of Species, which was published in 1859, also took many ideas of Lamarck and said that the diversification ultimately leads to development of only those species which are selected through nature. That means the time of natural selection came into existence. When we talk about the diversification of the microbes, this is basically based on the following four criteria. Number one is the morphological diversity. That means the diversification of the microbes is based on the phenotype or the morphology of the microbial cells. Number two is the structural diversity, which is based on the structural components that are present inside the cell or outside the cell. The third criteria is the metabolic activity of the microbes. On the basis of this also, the microbes have been classified. And the fourth one is the genetic heritage, which is a conserved nature of each of the microbe. Now, when we talk about the morphological diversity, it can be due to two aspects. One we call the microbial cell shape, and the second one is the microbial cell size. The cell size is dependent on the cell shape because the cell shape decides what will be the size of the cell. When we go on for the cell shape of the bacteria, basically they are of three types. One, cocci, where the cells are round or spherical shaped. In Bacillus, the microbial cells are rod-like structures, and in Spirillum, the bacterial cells are spiral in nature, and accordingly their size have been given. We begin with the cocci shape, that is where the bacterial cells are round or spherical in appearance. Now, the cocci shape does not mean that the round shapes will be isolated or they will be clustered. No, they follow a specific pattern of organization which is typical for each type of microbes. When the microbial cells are single and isolated, they exist as monococcus. This is a picture. Here we can see the microbial cells are isolated and they are not present in any form of pattern, which is referred to as the monococcus form of bacterial cell. Going back, when the round and the spherical cells are present in a pair, we call this pattern as diplococcus. A common example of this is Neisseria meningitidis. This is a pathogen which causes meningitis in the brain of the human. So, if we are able to isolate this type of bacteria from the cerebrospinal fluid of a human and go on for the histological study and see the diplococcus nature of the bacteria, then it is postulated that there may be presence of Neisseria meningitidis. Here you can see the two cells are bound together and they have got a common sheath. The round and the spherical cells, when they follow a pattern of 4 or 8 cells, when they follow a pattern of 4, we call it a tetrad, and if a further division of these 4 cells takes place, then they form a bunch of 8 cells. This type of pattern of 8 cells is seen in the case of Sarcina. So, any infection by Sarcina, if seen with a bunch of 8 cells, depicts that the organism is nothing but a species of Sarcina. When the spherical cells are clustered together, they look like a bunch of grapes or a bunch of balloons together. This shape is referred to as the Staphylococcus, and here we can see a common pattern seen in the case of Staphylococcus aureus. This is again a pathogen which infects the human and cause many skin infections which are easily treated with the help of the antibiotic. The last pattern seen in the case of coccus is when the cocci or the round shapes are in the shape of a line or they form a beaded chain-like structure. This is called the Streptococcus pattern. This is commonly seen in the case of Streptococcus pneumonia. Here you can see in one of the pictures shows a single chain of Streptococcus pneumoniae where the cells form a beaded chain-like structure and each of the cell is cocci or round in appearance. This organism is responsible to cause the pneumonia in the human beings. Going on to the second morphological diversity of the microbial cell, and that is called bacillus. As said earlier, bacillus is a rod shape, or an organism which is called bacillus should be a rod shaped bacteria. Again, different patterns of bacillus has been encountered in the microbial world. The first pattern we called is when the bacillus or the rod shaped cells are present in identical form, that is, they are not forming any cluster or any pattern, and that is a common symptoms or a common morphology that is seen in the case of Bacillus subtilis and Bacillus cereus. The second pattern that is seen in the case of bacillus when the two bacillus strains are or the two bacillus cells are joined together by their terminal end. They are not joined laterally but by their terminal end, and this structure is known as diplobacillus. A common morphological pattern that is seen in the case of Klebsiella pneumoniae, again a pathogen which is responsible to cause pneumonia in humans. The gram-negative stain in the right-hand side picture shows that how these two microbial cells are joined together by their terminal end and not by their lateral end. The third pattern seen in the case of bacillus is Streptobacillus, quite similar to the name of Streptococcus, where we see the rod-shaped cells are joined terminally and they form a chain-like structure. This chain-like structure is called Streptobacillus, commonly seen in the case of Streptobacillus moniliformis. Another typical structure seen, which is a mixture of a cocci and a bacillus, is called Coccobacillus. Why we call it Coccobacillus is, this cell, as you can see the picture over here, this cell on the terminal part is round in appearance while it extends forming a rod-shaped structure, and therefore the name given to it is Coccobacillus, which is a morphology or a characteristic morphology in the case of Brucella species and the species of Bordetella. Going on, the third morphological diversity of the microbial world is spirillum. Here the cells are spiral shaped, and depending upon the number of spirals or depending upon the rigidity of the cell, they again follow few patterns. What are these? Let us see. The first pattern we see is in the case of Vibrio cholerae. Here the cells are rod shaped but they are not straight rods, while they are curved rods, and we also call them the comma-shaped bacteria. Very well seen in the case of Vibrio cholerae, the organism which is responsible to cause cholera in human being. Spirillum is a pattern followed by many microbial cells. Here in this case, the cell is rigid and they are spiral in appearance. They may be having a sheath or they may not be having a sheath, but cells are much rigid and they form a spiral pattern. The right hand side picture shows a gram staining of the cell where many spirillum volutans are seen over here. The third pattern we see in the case of bacteria is spirochete. In the case of spirochete, here the cell wall is not so rigid and therefore much flexible like a spring, and therefore much spirals are seen in the case of spirochete. A very common example is Treponema pallidum. This is again a pathogen which is responsible to cause syphilis in human beings. In addition to the cocci, bacillus and spirillum morphology of the microbial world, there is a typical morphology seen in the case of actinomycetes. They are basically the bacteria which are the producers of antibiotic, and they are very much exploited in the biotechnological industry. The particular characteristic feature of this actinomycetes is they do not have a cocci, bacillus or a coccobacillus or spirillum shape. Rather, they have a morphology which is called a mycelial nature, and we call them mycelium. That is the thread-like structures, and they form a network of cells. Going on, for the last bacterial shape is, we call it nanobacteria. The other name for it is ultramicrobacteria. This is a very recent topic which is being studied nowadays, because what we see in the case of nanobacteria is they may be following a cocci shape or a bacillus shape, but the main characteristic feature of this nanobacteria is they are very much smaller in size, around about 0.2 micrometer to 0.5 micrometer, and therefore they are very hot topic for the microbiologist of today. So we can see that by morphology, different microbes could be known or could be distinguished from each other. Now we go on to the second basis of diversification, and that is known as structural diversity. The diversity which is based on the structural components of a bacterial cell. Now it is not necessary that the structural components have to be present inside the cell. No. They can be present outside the cell, but they are characteristic for that particular type of microbial cell. Like the cell wall. The first structural component we come across is cell wall. The second is cell membrane. The third is the external appendages. That is the structure which are present outside the cell. And the fourth one is the internal structures that are present inside the microbial cell. If we come across the cell wall, the bacteria show great diversification. There are many bacteria which show a gram-positive cell wall. Gram-positive cell wall means that the peptidoglycan layer in this cell wall is quite thick. The peptidoglycan has got a carbohydrate backbone. That means it has got N-acetyl glucosamine and N-acetyl muramic acid, which is called in short NAG and NAM. This carbohydrate backbone has got amino acid side chains, and the peptide cross linkages are also there. So this peptidoglycan layer is much larger and thicker in the case of gram-positive bacteria. That means those bacteria which possess this type of cell wall are categorized as gram-positive. In addition to the peptidoglycan, they show presence of teichoic acid. Now it has been seen that if we remove the teichoic acid from these gram-positive cell wall, the bacteria is not able to survive. That means it holds a very prominent place in the viability of the bacterial cell. Also, the teichoic acid gives a surface charge to the bacterial cell. Now the thing comes, why gram-positive? It was Christian Gram who first designed a procedure or a staining method by which these cells could be distinguished from other set of cell, and that was called gram-negative cell. And that is why, based on the name of Christian Gram, the name was given as gram-positive or gram-negative. Going on to the gram-negative cell wall, here we see a thick layer of lipopolysaccharide, in short known as LPS. Lipopolysaccharide is basically a lipid. It has got two components as polysaccharide and lipid A. Now, when the gram-negative bacteria undergoes lysis, this lipid A component is released from the cell wall. And when this lipid A component is released from the cell wall, it causes fever in human. And that is why we must have encountered, or we must have seen in many of us who suffer from Salmonella typhi infection, that is typhoid. Salmonella is a gram-negative bacteria, and when the lysis of this bacteria in the bloodstream takes place, lipid A is released. The release of lipid A causes fever in human. This lipid A is therefore known as endotoxin. In addition to LPS, the gram-negative bacteria shows a presence of a space, and this space is called periplasm. Periplasm is a space that is present between the cell membrane and the cell wall. Periplasm has got many enzymes. A very common example is phosphatase. Now, presence of phosphatase in the periplasm helps the bacteria to survive in an environmental condition where heavy amount of phosphate is there. So, with the help of phosphatase, they can utilize phosphate and the bacterial cells are able to survive in that environment. Like this, many other enzymes are present in the periplasmic space. In addition to it, we have the presence of porins. These porins are the proteins which help in the transport of nutrients outer to the cell and helps it to bring it to the periplasmic space, and it may also enter the inside of the microbial cell, and therefore presence of porins is there. Going on with the third type of cell wall that we see in the microbes is the mycobacterial cell wall. Now, mycobacterial cell wall is a typical feature of Mycobacteria species. We might have encountered the names like Mycobacteria tuberculosis or Mycobacteria leprae, the first one causing tuberculosis in humans and the second one which causes leprosy in humans. So, these particular organisms have this type of cell wall which is not a gram positive, not a gram negative, but they are mycobacteria. The specialization of this mycobacterial cell wall is that they have the presence of peptidoglycan towards the cell membrane or towards the plasma membrane, but this layer is very thin compared to gram-positive bacteria. On one hand, it mimics the gram-negative bacteria because it shows the presence of porins or the channels through which the nutrients which are present outside the cell could be transported inside the cell. Also, there is a presence of a component which is called lipoarabinomenin. In short, we call it LAM, L-A-M. Now, this lipoarabinomenin is or starts its journey from the cytoplasmic membrane, and it may extend to the outer surface also. This LAM is a typical feature of mycobacterial cell wall and is a responsible virulence factor where we see the patients are suffering from tuberculosis or they are infected with Mycobacterium tuberculosis. In addition to this, the mycobacterial cell wall has got mycolic acid, which is again one of the virulence factor which causes disease in humans. Now, we have seen three types of cell wall: gram-positive, gram-negative and mycobacterial. But there is a category of microbes which lack a cell wall. That means if we pass these microbes through a bacterial filter, they are able to pass through it. Why? Because they do not have a cell wall. This type of cell morphology is called pleomorphic in nature. That means they can assume any type of shape since they do not have a cell wall. A common example is Mycoplasma pneumoniae, the organism which is responsible to cause pneumonia in human beings. Now, after cell wall, we proceed to the next structural component which gives the diverse form of the microbes is the plasma membrane, or we call it a cell membrane. Now, in our earlier program, we talk about the three domains of life, that is archaea, eukarya and prokarya. Now, if we go on to this, we see that the bacteria and the eukarya, they have a common type of plasma membrane, whereas the archaebacteria have got a different type of plasma membrane. The bacteria and eukarya, they show the ester linkages in their plasma membrane, while the archaebacteria show ether linkages in their plasma membrane. In addition to this, the lipid bilayer of the bacteria and the eukarya, the different type of bacteria that we come across, they show a lipid bilayer. That means the lipid which is present shows two layers, and therefore this plasma membrane shows very much fluidity or flexibility. However, in the case of the archaebacteria, there is a presence of a lipid monolayer. That means we don't have two layers like this, but we have a single layer of the lipid, and therefore this is called the lipid monolayer. This is assumed to be a structural modification according to the environment, because what we know is archaebacteria are the one which could thrive in extreme conditions of high pH or high temperature, high pressure or high salinity. And because of these extreme conditions, we say that the membrane should not have the fluidity, and the fluidity of the membrane is being lost because of the presence of the lipid monolayer in the archaebacteria. Going on to the third structural component which gives a morphological diversification is the external appendages. Now, these external appendages are of different types. The first one we come across is pili. Here in the left hand side picture, we can see the E. coli cells have got numerous brush like thing. They are very fine in structure and they are not seen with the light microscope so clearly. These pili are basically for the attachment to the host cell. For example, if we take a bacteria which causes the pneumonia, they have got specialized pili because this pili is able to attach to the respiratory tract, or we say the mucosal cells of the respiratory tract. So, pili is basically for the adhesion, because on the tip of the pili there is a presence of adhesins, typical molecules which are for the adhesion, and therefore they could cause the disease in the human host. Not all the pili are for adhesion. There are many pili which bring about the process of conjugation. Conjugation is where we say one bacterial cell transfers its genetic material to the other bacterial cell. These pili which help in the process of conjugation are called conjugation pili. In this case, the two pili of the cells, they come together, they join, and ultimately they form a bridge or a tube-like structure through which the genetic material of one cell could be transferred to the other cell. Another external appendage we come across in the microbial world is flagella. Now, flagella is again of two types. If the flagella is very much visible to the eyes and they are external to the cell wall, we call them ectoflagella or simply flagella. Here we can see the cell is extending out three flagella. In addition to it, we might see the small brush-like things which are pili, we have already seen. Now, all the flagella are not easily seen, or they are not easily seen as thread-like structures outside the cell. They are known as endoflagella. Endoflagella is a characteristic feature of spirochete. In the case of spirochete, which we have studied in our earlier section, which is a spirillum, that means they have a spiral shaped structure. The two ends or the two poles have got two flagella, and these flagella, they fold backward and they cover the whole body. The one flagella which is coming from here on this pole and the other flagella which is coming from this side, and therefore they give a pattern to the whole cell body. Glycocalyx is again another external appendages which is characteristic of the bacteria. Now, glycocalyx can be of two types. if it is rigid and has got a shape, then we call it a capsule. Here we can see the white structures which are seen in this picture. These are the capsule, a very common feature of Klebsiella pneumoniae, the organism which is able to cause pneumonia in humans. This presence of capsule gives the virulence to the Klebsiella species. On the other hand, if the glycocalyx is not well organized or loosely attached to the cells, though they are present outside the cell, but they are loosely attached, very much slimy in nature, then we call it slime layer. They are not so pathogenic in compared to the one where we see the capsule. Now coming to the internal structures which gives the structural diversity to the microbial world is endospore. Endospores, as the name goes on, are present inside the bacterial cells. All the bacterial cells are not able to produce endospores. Basically, the gram-positive cells, that means the cells which has got a gram-positive cell wall, they are the producers of endospores. Now, endospores are the dormant spores. They are able to survive the high temperature, high pH, high acidity, and whenever the favorable condition comes, these endospores mature and they ultimately form the vegetative cells. A common example is seen in the case of Clostridium tetani, the organism which causes tetanus in human beings. Now, we might have seen that whenever we have an injury or a wound and there is a presence of soil or some debris on the wound, we tell the patient to remove it and wash it properly. Why? Because inside the soil there may be presence of endospores, and when these endospores develop on getting the favorable conditions, they form the vegetative cells, and therefore Clostridium tetani, which forms numerous endospores, here we can see in the picture, they are able to survive in high temperature or high pH or high pressure. Another structure or an internal structure that we come across in many bacterial cells, but not all, is presence of plasmid. This plasmid is an extra chromosomal DNA. That means in addition to the bacterial DNA, there are many bacteria which shows the presence of other DNA components, and these are called plasmid. Now, there are many bacteria which show a single copy of plasmid, and there are many bacteria which show numerous copies of plasmid, and accordingly they have been classified into different genus or species. Lastly, in the internal structures, we come across the inclusion bodies. That means the bodies which are found inside the cell cytoplasm of the microbial cells. The first example is metachromatic granules. The other name of metachromatic granules is volutin granules. These are basically the polyphosphate granules because they have got huge amount of phosphate within them, and therefore whenever these cells undergo a scarcity of food, they are able to survive because this metachromatic granules contain high amount of phosphate. Another example is magnetosomes. Magnetosomes are found in many genus where a magnetite, or we say a cluster of magnetite crystals, are formed. These magnetite crystals are nothing but crystals of ferrous, and therefore they form a sort of needle of a compass and guide the cell to move towards the favorable condition. That is, it gives a magnetotactic behavior. Therefore, we say that the morphological diversity can divide the microbes into different groups. On the other hand, the structural diversity divides the microbes into different groups. These should be considered together. Morphology as well as the structural components that are present in a microbial world can give diverse forms of the microbes. In addition to it, the other two components, that is the genetic variation and the metabolic variation, will be dealt in our next program.